What's the crack, guys? Today we're looking at your friendly Mongolian horse shaggers. Khuzait are a force to be reckoned with, especially when they bring more horses than the amount of archers and spearmen you can muster, but that doesn't mean they're the best. In patch 1.4.1, most of their ranged cavalry and archers got their armor degraded, and now mostly come with 1 stack of arrows. Only 3 out of their 9 ranged cav units come with 2 stacks, and to my surprise even the Khan's guard didn't make it into that 3. So everyone who's been whining, "Khuzait OP, nerf please," got their wish. Khuzait have some interesting pros and cons when it comes to their main and noble troop lines. Namely, they lack any kind of shock infantry, and in a couple of battles against the Aserai, my infantry would get their asses absolutely fucking kicked, as all infantry is armed with swords only, with a single exception, leaving them to struggle against heavily armoured high tier troops. 12 of their 20 units are mounted, allowing them to field an army with highest horse to man ratio. This also means that on average their army is the most expensive to field in the first place, as horses don't grow on trees, and any losses of high tier mounted men will cost you a horse and a war horse on top. This is especially crushing as you see your horsemen getting eaten alive by castle garrisons, as you can't bring a horse to a siege battle, and 9 out of your 12 cav units don't have shields, making it a bigger problem in the current state of siege battles. Their excellent mix of shock, melee and ranged cavalry makes their infantry a bit useless, as your cavalry will more than likely dominate your opponent's cavalry, which makes your spearmen's spears a bit useless most of the time, but they still have javelins to rely on. In order to maximize efficiency of your horse archers, you need to babysit them, and keep an eye on when they can and cannot fire at will. When they chase small groups of units, they are prone to wasting their arrows, which in bigger battles will force them to engage in the melee, and your main troop line ranged cav only has a sword for backup, and will suffer plenty of casualties at low to mid tiers. At least your noble line ranged cav has a spear or a glaive as a backup, giving them easier time. Having said all that, let's have a look at their in-depth stats. Like all other meat shields, the Nomad doesn't differ at all. Average skill rating of 0.67, shite armor, and armed only with an iron saber. The Footman has rather poor head armor, rest of the armor is somewhat good for tier 2, still average skill rating, and this is the exception I mentioned earlier. 2 of the 3 loadouts for the Footman come with a mace instead of a sword. With 2 flavors of sabers and a spear comes the Spearman. Coming with excellent armor for tier 3 and average skill rating, this man can manhandle any horse coming his way. Spear infantry mightn't look as well armored as the previous chap, but he does come with better armor, only dropping body armor from 33 to 26 on one loadout. Skill rating just under the average, but that's due to his lower throwing, as he also comes with javelins to make him an attractive unit to use other than just horsemen. The Rakan is a real jewel in the Khuzait roster, who often gets overlooked because of the horse good, legs bad logic. Well armored, just about reaching the super heavy category, armed with the best horse smiths can offer. A unit well worth investing in, and probably the only useful unit for sieges along with the lancers. Hunter isn't special by any means, with rather average skill and armor for what he is. Keep in mind he only comes with a single stack of arrows. Archer, just like the Hunter, doesn't stand out in terms of skill or armor rating, however it's interesting to see that the stats he uses vary from each other instead of being flat hundreds like for majority of tier 4 units. Marksman, which upholds the title of the second best ranged footman in the game just after the Fians, comes with great heavy armor, although head armor is a bit on the weaker side. Skill wise he's bang on the average. Tribal Warrior is possibly the best tier 2 unit in the game, I dare you to prove me wrong. However, this title comes at a 4-legged cost. As a tier 2 unit he's also quite easy to kill, meaning that looters with rocks can pose a threat to this man, and this guy will become a very expensive corpse if he dies. Raider is the only mounted archer from the regular troop tree to boast a spear along with the rest of his gear, losing it in later tiers. Overall he's good, just a bit under armored. Horse Archer is a very odd unit, as 2 of the loadouts come with 2 stacks of arrows while the third one only comes with a spear instead of a second stack. That's why the pale yellow skill you see apply just to that one loadout. To get this guy you're going to have to invest a warhorse into him. Heavy Horse Archer is a heavily armored arrow dispensing machine. With average skill rating he can cause more havoc with his bow than the noble line Horse Archers of the Khuzait, simply because more arrows equal more damage. Horsemen are your introduction into Khuzait shock cavalry. They come with good for tier 3 armor and average skill rating. This line of horsemen is the one that comes with shields. Lancer is a unit well worth investing a warhorse into, couching opponents down into dust, with a rather average skill rating and very good armor rating. The Mongolian Druzhin Heavy Lancer, with skill rating above the average thanks to his extra 20 riding that he got from the bedroom. Armor wise he's a bit of a behemoth, but his leg armor is on the low side, which puts him in a rough spot as a mounted boy. Finally we're getting around to the noble troop line. Problem is that only one of these 5 noble units will get 2 stacks of arrows, and it's not even the Khan's guard. Luckily the noble son already comes with a horse, so you get that one for free. The skill rating is a bit under the average, but that's due to the lower one-handed. Khankli is just a little better than Noble Son, however to top off his gear he also comes with a spear, letting him become a discount shock cavalry when out of arrows. Though the good suffers from being under armored for a tier 4 unit even though he's a horse archer, both the spear and the saber have been replaced by a deadly glaive. Also to get this guy you're going to have to spend a warhorse. Finally the Keshig, the third and last unit in the entire Khuzait army with 2 stacks of arrows. Coming with great armor and over the average skill rating, this man means business on the battlefield. I would even say that he's worth keeping over upgrading further just because of the extra stack of arrows for longer battles. Khan's guard comes with a sweet skill rating of 7.56 and armor rating reaching just over 3, showing you how good this unit actually is. However on the downside he does lose his second pack of arrows. So that about wraps up the in-depth stats for the Khuzait. If you're new to the channel and have no idea how the armor and skill ratings work, basically skill rating is set between 1 and 10 while armor rating is set between 1 and 4. If you want to know how it's calculated, have a look at the spreadsheets in the description or watch the first 3 minutes of the Batania guide video, whichever suits, I don't mind. I experimented a lot with the Khuzait roster and it was hard to come up with a good balanced army without going horse only on the hardest difficulties. However, I feel that with the recent changes, horse archers are good for harassment, distracting and staying alive more than anything else, while unmounted archers mightn't be so mobile but they are more deadly and accurate. Just look at this battle end screen. My 17 tier 3 archers taken care of 37 enemies, while 69 tier 3 and 5 horse archers scored 64 casualties. That's 2.17 casualties per archer and 0.98 per mounted archer. However, this can work to our advantage if we use horse archers like dragoons. Instead of letting them circle around their enemies while shooting, I experimented with dismounting them too, but yeah, they shoot the horses by accident and they run away, and when it's mounting time, yeah, doesn't work.
Fuck this shit, I'm out. No thanks, don't mind me. I'ma just grab my stuff and leave. Excuse me please. Fuck this shit, I'm out.
Well, and it requires more micromanagement, which is a headache in Bannerlord to be honest. So you can just keep them still at an enemy's flank while you have some infantry or something distracting the enemy formations. Basically, as long as mounted archers stay still, they can be as deadly as unmounted ones. When it comes to the rest of the roster, the Lancer Shock Cavalry worked the best at engaging archers and other footmen lacking two-handed weapons. But they can be used to charge into enemy frontline as well, just make sure they're already engaged with your infantry, so your Shock Cavalry doesn't get focused and can charge a couple of times for best effect. For me, the 66% horse to 34% foot ratio worked the best, simply because it allowed me to focus all footmen into frontline infantry and leave the unmounted archers out, then split my mounted in half shock and half archer cavalry, which allowed me to maneuver my mounted archers to wherever I needed them and have shock cavalry support the infantry, which in the most dire of times can hold its own due to the heavy armor, large shields and being able to fend off both cavalry and infantry with spears, javelins and swords. Just make sure your infantry always outnumbers your enemies, if engaging without shock cavalry to help, as swords don't fare well against heavy high tier armor. The last thing to touch upon are sieges, simply because they are a bit rough for Khuzait only armies due to their lack of shields on most units. Only your infantry spearman line and lancer line from the main troop line have shields, and at that most of them are small, round cavalry shields. Tier 2, 3 and 4 spearmen have the square wicker shields, good for tanking arrows. Sieges are also the only reason you don't need unmounted archers, because all your mounted archers take their role during a siege. And as one wise man once said, if you bring enough men you can win any battle. However, we're interested in preserving as many as we can, so bringing plenty of spearmen for sieges is advised before you reach the walls. Also, Tail Worlds, can you please tell me why can I not hit these men, and why are they trying to walk through a blocked doorway? That'd be great, thanks. And that, guys, sums up my thoughts about the Khuzait army in its current state in patch 1.4.1. Hope you enjoyed the video, and if you don't mind, give it a like and maybe even subscribe if you're feeling brave. If you have any questions, drop it in the comments. I usually see all of the comments you post since there aren't so many. So yeah, have a good day and see you in the next one.